Hey, how's it going? Today I'm going to be showing you how to cultivate mushrooms using grain spawn, some pea straw, some hydrated lime, and a bucket with holes. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is soak the pea straw for 24 hours in a bin of some sort that can fit all your pea straw in, obviously. I have a bin outside, I believe it is 90 litres, that should be enough. And then you put in the hydrated lime, which basically kills all the competing microorganisms so that you have a better chance of growing your mushrooms on the substrate. Because it's so hot outside, I've got this beauty. Alright, let's go. So what you're looking at here is basically just I've put something that is, I guess, the water can go through, and at the same time hold that brick to stop the pea straw from floating upwards. Otherwise, if you don't put any weight on top of it, it tends to just float out of the water and you don't have fully submerged pea straw, which is what you need. So that's all that is. Okay, so now that it's soaking in the water, I'll allow it to soak for about 24 hours, and then tomorrow I will drain all the water out and I will allow it to dry out under the sun for about 2 hours, and then I will put it into the buckets with the pre-drilled holes in them, and then also layer it with grain spawn. One thing I would like to mention is make sure your hands are clean and the buckets are clean, otherwise you will not get good results. I found out the hard way a lot of times, so just make sure you're cleanly, if that's a word. So now that the pea straw is all dried out, I'm gonna put it into these two buckets here. I have grain spawn on the left and a grow block on the right side, and I'm gonna show you how to use both of them. Oh well, use that one and recycle that one once you've grown mushrooms from it. The first layer that you put in the bucket is pea straw, and then you follow it by the grain spawn or the sawdust spawn if you're using an old grow block, and you just layer it like lasagna. Just make sure it's packed down tight so that there's no space for the mushrooms to grow inside of the bucket. It also, I guess you can fit more substrate in if you pack it down, meaning you'd get a better yield and more substrate for the mycelium to colonize. So this is what it will look like. Basically just straw with grain spawn, and then you want to put another maybe 2 inches of straw, and then more grain spawn. Same with the sawdust. Just layer it, and I guess try and distribute it evenly with what you have. These buckets will sit on these shelves for about 1 to 2 weeks while they colonize. It gets quite warm in this greenhouse, so they'll have no trouble staying warm out here. You need a minimum of at least 20 degrees Celsius. This is where I'll be putting all of my grow blocks to fruit mushrooms. It's a relatively cheap greenhouse, $200. It's 2 meters by 2 meters, and I could probably put something on the floor in the middle to put more mushrooms on, or even, you know, stack the buckets up in the middle, because probably not enough room to grow mushrooms all around that bucket on the shelf. And over here I have my extension lead coming from the house, connected to a timer, 15 minutes on, 15 minutes off all day. And that power lead runs up here, and it goes into my 100mm extraction fan, which I bought from Herbal House, and it just pushes all of the old air out the front. And over here is my humidifier, which I bought from Kmart. I've just added a fan at the top of it to distribute all of the humidity a bit better, because usually it just shoots straight up, doesn't get very far. So with a bit of help it can fill up the room a bit better. I actually brought another one, but I've dropped it and broke it, so I need to get another one. This isn't quite complete yet, but once it is complete I'll show you guys. Oh, and one more thing. This is the temperature and humidity reader. Sorry, I'm a bit tired. So for the flooring of my greenhouse, because you want it to be airtight all the way around, I've basically just put two, oh, you can see it through, just 2 big pallets side by side, and laid down a big tarpaulin on top of them. I know what some people might be thinking straight away, that's dangerous, and yes it is, but I haven't quite got any flooring for it yet, so I'll just work with what I have for now. And don't make the mistake I did. I thought it would be a good idea to put breathers, and it really disrupts the humidity when there's a lot of wind coming in, so don't do that. I had to patch them up. Learn from everyone else's mistakes. It's been 4 days since I plucked those mushrooms off the bucket, and all of these have grown around it. Some at the back there. These are a perfect example of when your CO2 is too high. So the caps tend to curl up and they look all funny, and that's not what you want, especially if you're trying to sell them to people. I think I might eat those for breakfast. These ones here, they look a bit cleaner. I have increased my ventilation to avoid that happening every time. I also have some blocks growing some phoenix oysters. I didn't have a very high success rate this round, just because of a few things. This is a fresh air intake that I added just to constantly have fresh air coming in from the back, and I think I've already told people about that. And over here, these blocks here weren't quite ready. I was a bit hungry and I've put them in early and they're doing nothing, so there's another example of what not to do. So if they're not fully colonized, don't chuck them in. They're either going to go bad or they're not going to work at all, so there's no point in doing it. As you can see, these native oysters, Porotus parsonsii, oh, said that so hard the camera shook. They don't grow as fast. Well, I mean, generally they grow quite fast, but the reason in this case is because that one was 1 kg of grain spawn, and this one here was 3 kgs of a recycled grow block, so that did grow a lot faster colonization wise. One thing I have changed since the start of this video is I have added some LED lights, which I run at night time just for some extra light for the mushrooms, and also instead of having all of the power cables inside running along all this metal poles and stuff, it just sounds like a hazard to me. I've run everything through this hole here, which leads into the greenhouse out the back, which I'll show you now. So this is nothing fancy. This is how much was this? It's like $8 for the fan, and then I had to wire it up to a AC adapter so I could plug it into the power, and then I have all of spaghetti junction stuff going on here. So nothing very special, just pretty basic really. Okay, so these high CO2 affected mushrooms have gone a bit crazy. They have grown a bit bigger and they're still edible, but not something myself or anyone would try and sell. As you can see, it's a bit of a mess over here, but that is a lot of mushrooms. And after I increased ventilation by turning the fan speed up and having it more constantly, you can see the difference here. These ones are a lot more, I guess, what's that word I'm looking for, aesthetic. These native oysters are growing slowly but surely. They, I find it quite hard to grow native oysters wrong. They always seem to come out quite good, no matter the environment. I guess they are in their environment. So I think I'm gonna harvest all of these messy ones and eat them. I'll also show you how much they weigh, just so you get a rough idea of how much you can grow out of a bucket. There'll still be all these other ones growing, which I'll tally up the total weight at the end and let you guys know. So for those mushrooms, they're weighed in at 428 grams. Obviously that's not all of what was in that bucket and what is going to be produced by that bucket, so that's just an example of you know, what you can get out of growing in buckets as opposed to just little grow bags. I mean, obviously you can grow in bigger polythene bags, but trying to reduce the plastic waste is a better way of producing a lot of mushrooms for people. So far I've pulled about 450 grams of mushrooms off this bucket. Last time I was explaining how this high CO2 can make all of the mushroom caps curl up, and whilst I was cleaning out whilst I was harvesting all of the mushrooms last night, I forgot to turn the humidifier back on, and these mushrooms have gone a bit curly. They're still edible, they just don't look as nice. So I'll harvest these and then we'll be able to tally up the total amount for the first flush of mushrooms out of this one bucket. So this one is a little bit behind the Phoenix oyster, but it is growing a lot more mushrooms at once and more consistently. Focus is really bad. There we go. Yeah, they tend to grow a lot easier. They're a bit more resilient to fluctuation in temperature, humidity and CO2 levels, so they're a lot easier to grow. When it comes to harvesting, just kind of grab it and twist it off. It's really easy. Yeah, not bad, not bad. So these native oysters have been growing quite nicely. I've actually had the humidifier off for about 2 days and they're still growing quite nicely. They have gone a little bit wavy, but to be honest, I haven't seen a native oyster that hasn't done that. They always do that, and I feel like that's just how they grow. Especially when they get a lot larger as well, they tend to go a bit wavy, but nothing wrong with that. They're still edible mushrooms, and to be honest, I think they look nice. Those ones are probably ready to harvest. However, I have some more pin sets growing out the back here, and probably have some more following around. The problem with harvesting some before others is that if you harvest some and leave the rest, they tend to get affected and can actually die. I shouldn't have been doing that with the Phoenix oyster. I just realized I was probably the reason why they kept going funny, so it's best to leave all the mushrooms until it's ready to harvest. Ideally it would be good if they all came out at the same time, right? But with mushrooms, you never know. It's always a constant battle. So I don't know what to do. I mean, I have the market tomorrow, so I'm probably gonna actually end up pulling them in the morning tomorrow. These ones would have grown by then, so I'm happy with that. I can weigh them up, and then I guess we'll see what happens with the rest, because I'm not gonna not sell these. So yeah, that's that. Obviously, if you were to be growing for a market, you'd be using a lot more buckets. I actually had grow blocks in here, which I have brief videos of, that were all around here, which I didn't record me harvesting because it was 1 in the morning and I didn't have the life in me to get the camera out and start talking about what I'm doing. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I remember at the start of the video I was telling people not to make these vents because it would interrupt the humidity. However, with my fan that I had brought, I feel like it might be too small because the CO2 levels were too high. So I turned the fan up, and even then it wasn't powerful enough just for this boob room. So what I actually done is opened up the sides like that, so it's not a big disruption, but because the fan is going, it's actually sucking air through all of them. You can see right there, it's a bit of a gap, and because it's still closed at the bottom here, has minimal disruption from any wind outside, but can still suck air through. Ideally I'll just upgrade my fan, but right now I'm using what I have, which is very basic, just a Bunnings 2x2 meter greenhouse. I actually put these shelves in here. It's from a little from another greenhouse I had, actually, a little one. I just took the shelves from there and put them in there, so now I have more shelves for all my mushrooms that I don't have in here. next time. Yeah, oh, and this Kmart humidifier, which is $55 I think, and then I hooked up a case fan from PB Tech, just glued it on there. It works very well. I don't know if any of this equipment is built for this, but you know, some of us got to work with what we have. And there's the same case fan there, except blue, which runs 24/7. I don't know how powerful it is. I might actually swap that to a more powerful intake at some point, but as far as I'm concerned, it's more important to push air out than to push air in. But I guess this kind of makes up for the underpowered fan that I have. The fan that extraction fan that I have at the top would probably be ideal for a smaller tent, but because there's so many, well, there was so many mushrooms in here, creating a lot of CO2, because mushrooms breathe in oxygen and breathe out CO2 just like humans, so you can suffocate them if you don't have a good enough fan. Yeah, look at that. So these native oysters have been absolutely destroyed. They haven't done very good, and this is basically how it goes in mushroom cultivation. I have only done one bucket, for example. I was hoping for a good grow, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. Even when you sterilize the substrate and you get a good colonization and you have a good system going on, you can have insects come in and destroy all your hard work. That is probably due to these holes not having any porous tape over them, stopping insects invading. Also got some other fungi growing in here, some inky caps. So yeah, you see little bugs flying around. So these haven't done very good at all, and that's just the reality of mushroom cultivation. I do find growing in bags is easier, but if you have, say, a hydroponics tent indoors where there's going to be no bugs and low amounts of contaminant spores coming in, then you should be fine. But I am outside, so it's not very easy for me to grow in buckets. I find it easier to do it in the unicorn bags. So this is absolutely had it. It's soggy, it's got little bugs and eggs all over it, and it just doesn't feel nice to touch at all. Quite sticky. This one's all shriveled up. Yeah, that's not very good. And the wind has been wreaking havoc on my greenhouse. The humidifier has fallen apart. The whole little greenhouse at the back that holds all of my electricals has blown off to the side. It's been pretty crazy out here, so I'm just waiting to get an indoor setup going where I don't have to worry about the horrendous winds and rain, insects invading, all that sort of stuff. On a high note, this Phoenix oyster bucket is actually producing more pins right there, quite small. There's a few holes growing. I do find that the Phoenix oyster strain is quite a resilient strain. Those native oysters usually do well, but because of the parasites that invaded the bucket and also the ink caps that contaminated it, that didn't do very well. But yeah, that's just it's just how the cookie crumbles with mushroom cultivation, especially when you're doing very low-tech outdoor run like I do. Yeah, the Phoenix oyster has been producing more mushrooms. I did say it was another video, but these popped up just in time for me to make the end of this video. But as you can also see on which mushroom, this one here, slugs have invaded and eaten the mushrooms before they had a chance to grow. Okay, so before I finish this video, I forgot to tell everyone that I actually got 200 grams of native oysters from that bucket, so that wasn't very successful, you know, in comparison to that Phoenix oyster, which I think got around 500 grams. I did harvest some earlier in the video, but I accidentally deleted it before I could even show anyone. Yeah, there was that little bit of mushrooms growing that I harvested early, which probably, you know, done some damage, but yeah, I did explain that. Yeah, that's it.